Welcome back to Learn Your Stripes. I'm Ryan Guillory.
And I'm Michael Moran. And today we're going to discuss everyone's favorite topic, post-scrimmage kick enforcement, or by its other known name, PSK. But first, let's talk about last week's play. We had 2nd and 10 for A from the B47 with 2:43 to go in the second quarter. The clock is running. B32 intercepts A10's forward pass, returns it to the A25. But prior to that interception, B96 is flagged for roughing the passer. And again, as usual, we want to hear out from you all. What's our down and distance? What's our game clock going to be? Do we have any rule changes between high school or college? Most importantly, in this case, who is going to put the ball in play next? Now, at both levels, it's going to be 1st and 10 for A from the B32. This is one of the examples we talked about last week of B not gaining the ball with clean hands. And of course, A is going to accept the penalty, which occurred prior to that change of possession. So as a result, A maintains the ball. It's a roughing foul and automatic first down in both high school and college. Because of that, we'll have a 25-second play clock, and we will start our game clock on the snap.
As Michael mentioned, this week we're discussing post-scrimmage kicks, or PSK. So as we do whenever we're discussing a new topic, let's go through the rules just so we understand what the rules are, and then we'll get into some examples. So let's start first, again, as we always do, with the high school rule. So going through the high school rule book, a post-scrimmage kick, or a PSK foul, is a foul by the receiving team. That's going to be the key for all of this. It's a foul by the receiving team, other than an illegal substitution or illegal participation foul that occurs at the snap when the foul occurs, and there's 5 elements to this. So the foul has to occur during a scrimmage kick play other than a try or a successful field goal, during a scrimmage kick play in which the ball crosses the expanded neutral zone, beyond the expanded neutral zone, before the end of a kick, and K will not be next to put the ball in play. So again, it's a foul by the receiving team when the foul occurs during a scrimmage kick play other than a try or a field goal that's successful. The ball has to cross the expanded neutral zone. The foul occurs beyond the expanded neutral zone. It occurs before the end of the kick, and the kicking team will not be next to put the ball in play. You can find that at Rule 2-16-2H. The post-scrimmage kick spot, that's going to be important too. The post-scrimmage kick spot is crucial here. That's the spot where the kick ends. The receiving team retains the ball after penalty enforcement from the post-scrimmage kick spot when a post-scrimmage kick foul occurs. Fouls by the receiving team behind the post-scrimmage kick spot are spot fouls. So that's fairly simple for us to think through. The mechanic of the bag judge getting a beanbag down where the kick ends is also crucial here, because that gives us our post-scrimmage kick spot so that we know afterward, did the foul occur in advance of the post-scrimmage kick spot? So we're going to come back and enforce it at the PSK spot, or was the foul behind the PSK spot? In which case that's going to be a spot foul, so the spot of the flag there is going to be important for us. So that's the rule. Now let's talk through an example here, Michael.
Yeah, sure. I think the simplest way that I try to put this in my mind, we talked about 5 basic principles. Really, when that ball is kicked, provided it's a halfway decent kick and has any sort of positive trajectory on it, that's that kind of time frame that we're talking about with potential PSK, really from the time that the kick kind of begins, and yes, it crosses the neutral zone, but that happens relatively quickly, and before that ball is caught. And Ryan talked about earlier, the beanbag by the back judge here, it's important. We're looking for when the kick ends. So if you have a muff and the ball kind of rolls around and maybe another R player picks it up, or the initial return man can pick it up. But that's why you got to hold on to that beanbag and make sure the kick is ended before you drop that, because that's going to change some things. So we'll talk about a quick example here, and we're going to talk about the basic spot. And of course, we've mentioned basic spot a number of times, and so that is on our list, and that will be another future episode here. But the basic spot is where the kick ends when R commits any foul that's related to PSK. And you can find that in Rule 10.4.3. So, quick example. K97 punts, and before the kick ends, R33 holds the gunner A12. So, notice in this case, we didn't give you a lot of yard lines here. The foul is going to occur during a loose ball play, and this is a foul by the PSK rules that we just talked about. So the penalty is either going to be enforced from that spot where the kick ends or from the spot of the hold if it's behind. So quite simply, if we've got a punt and, let's say we have a takedown right away by the return team, that foul is going to be close to the line of scrimmage, and maybe we have a 30-yard punt, we're going to enforce that from where that punt ends, or that scrimmage kick ends. So in this case, the spot isn't as critical. But however, for one reason or another, if we have a punt and it's in the air and maybe a K player gets behind the returner and then is held, or maybe a block in the back or something like that, then we would go back from the spot there if that was behind where the kick ended. So a lot to piece together, and it's hard to do with an audio only, but visually just think about that time frame from when that ball is kicked to when it is essentially caught and possessed, rather, not just touched.
Right. Yeah, I think it's also important, and I try to do this when I'm reviewing rules. We hear PSK, and I think sometimes it gives us a moment of panic to think through the elements and think through when it applies. We've emphasized this, and I might be beating a dead horse here, but it's in the title, right? Post-scrimmage kick, scrimmage kick. This will never apply on a free kick. So you never have to worry about PSK on a kickoff, whether it's after a touchdown, field goal, start a half, or the free kick after a safety. PSK rules do not apply. We also talked about earlier in the elements here, PSK rules do not apply on a successful try or field goal. So the universe in which PSK could ever apply would be on a punt or on a missed field goal, or in college, a try, right? In high school, a missed try is just dead. So like I said, I think it helps to think through the very limited universe, because I think it's easy for us to get a little bit anxious or a little bit flustered when this comes up during a game. But if you think through, it's a very limited universe in which you could ever have a PSK foul. So with that in mind, we've talked about the high school rule. We've talked about an example. Let's talk about the college rule here. And of course, since tries and all are a little bit different, and as we've discussed a lot, college tends to have a lot more exceptions. High school tells us what the rules are. College comes in and tells us what the exceptions to the rule are. So the college rule for post-scrimmage kick spots is as follows. The post-scrimmage kick spot will serve as the basic spot when post-scrimmage kick enforcement applies. When the kick ends in the field of play, other than in a few special cases, the post-scrimmage kick spot is the spot where the kick ends. When a kick ends in Team B's end zone, the post-scrimmage kick spot is Team B's 20-yard line. Now, here's the special cases that I talked about just a moment ago. On an unsuccessful field goal attempt, if the ball is untouched by Team B after crossing the neutral zone and is declared dead beyond the neutral zone, the post-scrimmage kick spot is either the previous spot, if the previous spot was on or outside of Team B's 20-yard line, or Team B's 20-yard line if the previous spot is between Team B's 20-yard line and its goal line. Now, that's what we're thinking about in college. Whenever we have a field goal attempt, we have to be mindful of where that ball was kicked from, right? Where was the line of scrimmage there? We want to make sure that the box holds. So if we've got a miss or a block or something, if we're inside the 20, we've got to come out to the 20. Otherwise, we've got to know where that previous spot was if we have a missed field goal to set it down. So that's one of the special cases there. Another special case, when Rule 6.3.11 is in effect, and that rule tells us that a scrimmage kick that's untouched by Team B after crossing the neutral zone that's batted into Team B's end zone by a Team A player would be a violation for illegal touching. The spot of the violation is Team B's 20-yard line. That's, of course, that special case of batting that we have, and it's not a foul. Right. So when that's in effect, the post-scrimmage kick spot is Team B's 20-yard line. So just like with the rule itself, 6.3.11, you would bring the ball out to the 20 there. So a post-scrimmage kick spot there for us is going to be Team B's 20-yard line. The other special case is when Rule 6.5.1b is in effect, and that rule tells us when a Team B player makes a valid fair catch signal, they have the unimpeded opportunity to catch a free or scrimmage kick, and that continues if the player muffs the kick and still has an opportunity to complete the catch. If either that player or another Team B player catches the kick, the ball is placed where it was first touched. That protection terminates when the kick touches the ground. So that's that rule, right? So if we have a post-scrimmage kick foul and we have to find the post-scrimmage kick spot, then the post-scrimmage kick spot on that play is going to be the spot where the receiver first touched the kick. And you can find the basic PSK rules for college at Rule 2-25-11.
And I think one thing you talk about here, Ryan, and we just threw a lot at our audience there, The first case of knowing where we have that unsuccessful field goal attempt, are we inside the 20, are we outside the 20? On Saturdays, my headline judge, named Nick, he has kind of committed to his pre-snap of knowing that. And we're fortunate enough too, we can use radios, and I know you and I use radios on Friday night. He comes over the airways and says, hey, we're kicking from the 31. Hey, we're kicking from the 19. We're kicking from, whatever yard line. And then all 7 of us at that point know exactly what to do. Kind of helps out with some of our mechanics. I'm underneath the goalpost, and it gives me an idea of where I might need to go if we have a fire drill. But more importantly, if that field goal is missed, we all know where we just kicked from. We all know where the ball is going to go. And I think the other 2 you listed out there too, regarding punts and fair catches, I think that's just something you have to be alert of and be patient. Slow whistle like we've talked about from our previous plays, and that back judge with that beanbag, just knowing where that spot is and banking that information.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice for announcing the field goal spot or the line of scrimmage from where we're kicking on a field goal. Just because or whoever's on the line of scrimmage, I hate to be that person that tries to sound like we have the most important job. We don't. We just have different responsibilities. But pre-snap, we're always thinking through a whole lot of stuff, right? So if I announce that, hopefully I can remember it by announcing it. But even if I forget it during the play, then 6 other people on the field will have heard it. So you'd like to think your odds are pretty decent that 1 out of 7 is going to remember that spot that was announced. I find it helpful to verbalize it myself. So if I'm announcing to you, hey, we're going from the 23, right? Then that's useful for me, that hopefully if we have chaos that ensues, that if I have to come back and we need to know where we were, I can say, hey, we're at the 23. Right. But if I can't, then I've got 6 other people on the field who will have heard where we're kicking from, and hopefully it sticks along the way. So that's a really good practice that your crew does, and one I think others could pick up on and improve from. But that gives us, we've talked about the basic rules here for PSK fouls. Again, at the moment we're focusing on college. So Michael, how do we enforce those at the college level?
Sure. Something to get out of the way really quick is if both teams commit live ball fouls during that scrimmage kick, and again, I think we need to clarify too, we're talking about a kick, and that's not the kick play, because that itself can have different effects. We're talking about just the kick itself, the time that ball has left the foot to when it was either caught or recovered. So if we have both teams committing live ball fouls during a scrimmage kick, if all Team B fouls that occur before the change of possession are governed by PSK rules, Team B gets this bonus option of refusing those offsetting fouls, accepting their post-scrimmage kick enforcement, and then they can keep the ball. That kind of goes back to another topic we've touched on with penalty enforcement from previous episode, that if we have that offsetting fouls by both teams, we're going to replay that down. But here with PSK, we're allowing Team B to keep the ball. A little confusing there.
It's a special instance where you don't offset live ball fouls. Yeah, this is the only one of those out there. It's the only time that we're not going to offset live ball fouls, as Michael said. So, when PSK comes up, and again, it's very easy to miss that when it comes up, but we need to be mindful of the fact that Team B can have the foul enforced against it, keep the ball as long as it declines the foul against Team A.
So by rule, we've talked about it before from the college perspective. We're talking about a kick that's, again, like we talked about, not during a try, not a successful field goal, or during an extra period. The ball has to cross the neutral zone. The foul has to occur before the kick is ended. That time frame we talked about from off the foot into the hands, and Team B will be the next team to put the ball in play. So if we have all that, the penalty is going to be enforced according to the 3-and-1 principle, and Team B is taken as the team in possession with the PSK spot as the basic spot. So very similar to high school, we're talking about that PSK spot. And again, if that foul is beyond that, we're going to use the PSK spot. So again, have the beanbag handy. And if that foul is behind it, and again, I'm using beyond and behind from Team B's perspective. So it would be inverted from Team A. That's a little confusing there, but basic 3-and-1. Once they have possession, we're going to go from our basic spot as the PSK spot, and wherever the foul is from there, that's the choice we can make. I mean, you can find all this in Rule 10.2.3, and then some of our earlier discussion there was Rule 10.1.4.
Right. Yeah, and as we've talked about now for the last 2 episodes, we are going to have an episode that's nothing but basic spots. At least one episode, because there's a lot going on there. But sort of the idea of the basic spot is that it's whatever penalizes the offending team the most. Quite often, right? So if you have a spot where the kick ends, if they foul in advance of that spot, so let's say that the kick ends at the 30, the foul occurs at the 35. And so if you're going to enforce, let's say, a hold 10 yards, if you enforce it from the 35, then B gets the ball at the 25. If you enforce it from the 30, they get it at the 20, right? So which one hurts them the most going back to the 20? So a foul in advance of the basic spot there. We come back to the basic spot here. It's the end of the kick, and we enforce the foul there. Now, let's say they catch the kick again at the B30, and there's a foul behind that at, say, the 25, and you have, let's just use another 10-yard hold, right? So if you go from the 30 to the 20 or the 25 to the 15, go to the 15 hurts them the worst. So that's where we're going from. So a foul behind the basic spot, we're going from the spot of the foul. And again, there's a whole lot of information for us to do down the road on basic spot, but that's just sort of a very, very nice and tidy way to think about it here. So again, the 3-in-1 principle, that certainly comes in with basic spots. We're going to discuss that in excruciating detail for you in the future. But again, as it applies to PSK, when the team in possession commits a foul behind the basic spot, the penalty is enforced at the spot of that foul. When the foul is beyond the basic spot, the penalty is enforced at the basic spot. And so when PSK applies, B is taken as the team in possession. So the PSK, as we've been talking about, it's sort of a fiction, right? So we even though by rule B hasn't yet caught the kick, the kick hasn't ended, we take B as being the team in possession at the time of the foul in order to enforce these PSK rules. So it requires, it's sort of a suspension of belief, if you will.
Well, and I think the other thing too is if we treat it like any traditional play, for example, like another example of a loose ball play would be a defensive pass interference, right? The ball is in the air, the defense commits pass interference, it's a foul. We're going back to the previous spot and we're forcing it from there. If we handle punts the same way,
right.
It kind of gives could give a cheap first down or a cheap gain in yardage, right? And they could theoretically just punt all day long and move the ball down the field. So we're trying to move the game along. I think that's where this principle is getting at. So the other thing to consider too, we've talked about, I know we really highlighted it. B has to be the team to put the ball in play next. So if hypothetically you had a hold like we talked about, and then the returner muffed the ball and A recovered, by rule A is legally in possession of that ball, and
right.
we don't have PSK in this case.
Correct. Yeah, it's if there's one thing to take away from this, and I hope you take away a few things from what we're saying, but it's that it's a very limited universe in which PSK applies. There's not a lot of the football game in which you're going to have to think through PSK. It's got to be that kick beyond a scrimmage kick, goes beyond the neutral zone. B catches it. B's going to be the next to put the ball in play. And the foul occurs before B catches it. That's it. And as Michael emphasized there, to have PSK, B is taken as the team in possession. So we have the fiction that they were in possession at the time the foul occurred, but we also have the reality that they have to be the team that next put the ball in play. So here, when we're thinking about the 3-in-1 principle, you can find that in Rule 10-2-2-C. It's fairly simple to read through this stuff. It's a lot harder to remember it and to put it into practice. So we're going to go through quite a few examples this week. I think the examples here are quite helpful in just trying to sort through this and to think through how we handle this when it comes up. So I'll let Michael get started with a couple here.
Sure. So we'll start with one. Team A snaps the ball from the 50-yard line. This is a punt. Kick is untouched beyond the neutral zone. 80, it's going to reach across Team B's goal line, bat the ball back in the field of play. B22 is going to muff the ball at the B2, and A43 is going to recover it at the B6. And while all this is going on, while the ball is loose, B77 holds A21 at the B10. So We have a lot to think about here. That illegal touching should come to mind. We've got a muff. We have a kick. When did it end? There's all kinds of things to think about. By rule, Team A can cancel the illegal touching by accepting the holding penalty. I mean, that's another episode we can talk about. When you have an accepted penalty, your illegal touching is canceled. And that penalty is going to be enforced at the previous spot with the down replayed. We don't have PSK rules in this case because Team B didn't keep the ball. So kind of like what I alluded to earlier. So let's take this a different direction, though. We'll take another example here. Team A snaps the ball at the 50 again. Now, during the kick, B77 clips at Team A's 25-yard line, or Team B's 25-yard line, excuse me. The untouched kick is batted backward by Team A out of bounds from the end zone and goes out of bounds on the 2-yard line. So we don't have a muff this time. We just have a batted back out. Now, there's no foul for batting the ball in the end zone. This is just illegal touching. And B77's clipping foul is governed by PSK in this case because B is going to put the ball next to play. Team A can accept the penalty, which will cancel the illegal touching. So the penalty in this case is enforced at the PSK spot, which is the B20 because of where the ball ended up. So we're going to go half the distance from the goal. We'll have B's ball from their own 10-yard line, first and 10. That one's a little more complex, Ryan, because, again, things you have to think about with these two examples. The ball wasn't cleanly caught, right?
Correct.
So in the first, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one of those that you'd mentioned earlier, and I think it's important to think through. A kick can end kicks don't always end with a nice, neat catch, right?
Right.
Sometimes chaos breaks out on the field, but the kick ends at some point in time. And so these are two alternative ends to the kick. And part of the PSK rules, of course, is we have to think through when does the kick end. So these are two unusual. They come up, they happen, you have to know them, but we're much better off when they don't happen to us and can avoid these types of scenarios out on the field.
Right.
But your second example is good too. It gets us back to, again, we're not doing basic spots yet, but just thinking through for PSK purposes. You had the clipping at the B25. The post-scrimmage kick spot in this case was the B20. Right, so you got a 15-yard foul. Are you going from the 25 or from the 20? Well, here the foul occurred in advance of the post-scrimmage kick spot. So we're going to bring the ball back to the post-scrimmage kick spot, and from there, that's where we're going to enforce the foul. Clips 15-yarder, but if you're at the 20, don't go 15, you go half the distance. So that's how, in the example you used, Team B ended up with the ball at the B10, as opposed to the 12 and a half, right? So let's say it was opposite, because if it was opposite of that.
Sure. I mean, if we had a clip at the 25 and we caught the ball, let's say at the 25 or the 26, right, we would go half the distance from the 25. Great point.
Right. Yeah, so another example here, let's think through a fair catch example. We talked a little while ago about some special cases with fair catches. So here we've got B1. Gives us either a valid or invalid fair catch signal. Doesn't matter which one it is, but there's a fair catch signal given and doesn't touch the punt. So B1 gives the signal, never touches the ball. The untouched ball is loose in the field of play, and B1 blocks an opponent in the field of play beyond the neutral zone. So here, if the ball's crossed the neutral zone and Team B has possession when the down ends, Team B is penalized 15 yards from the post-scrimmage kick enforcement spot. And the reason for that, again, it's outside of this episode scope, but if you think through it, once you've given a fair catch signal, you can't block. So
valid or otherwise.
Right. Yeah, that's the foul here. It's a 15-yard foul. So here, it doesn't matter if the signal is valid or invalid, can't block. So here, he gives a signal, he blocks. He doesn't touch the ball, somebody else does. But if B has possession when the down ends, in other words, B will be the next team to put the ball into play, then Team B's penalized 15 yards from the post-scrimmage kick enforcement spot. So, another variation here. Let's say B1, once again, he's standing at the 50-yard line, doesn't touch a punt. The ball's rolling on the ground, goes back to Team B's 45-yard line, and then B1 illegally uses his hands in an attempt to get to the ball. The ball's declared dead in Team B's possession. Here, once again, 15 yards from the post-scrimmage kick enforcement spot, the ball belonged to Team B. And we can go back to Rule 10.2.3 here to look this up.
So let's jump things differently and go during a try here. So we have a try. So we've already scored a touchdown. So we got team A has a kick. It's untouched in the air. It's crossed the neutral zone, and we have a foul. Now, we're not going to specify. There's no foul specified in this example, but if fouls by team B and the try is successful, we score the points unless team A chooses to accept the penalty, and then they could attempt a 2-point play from there, I suppose. But the try in this case, the point we want to hit home here is the try is exempt from PSK enforcement. So any penalty for team B on a personal foul on a successful try could also be enforced on the kickoff or the succeeding spot for an overtime. But if the try is unsuccessful, team A can accept the penalty and just repeat the down. And again, that's all. That exception of this whole PSK is we don't enforce it on tries.
Yeah, and I think that, like, as you went through there, it's sort of the logical thing. If A makes the kick, or if A is successful in the try, they're quite likely going to take the points, but they could take them off the board and go for 2.
Sure.
Certainly have that option. But of course, if the try was unsuccessful, then team A has the option to accept the penalty and repeat the down. So chances are they're going to do that. Otherwise, if they decline the foul and the try is unsuccessful, then they're just free kicking and passing up points. So there's a pretty good chance that they're going to accept that penalty and repeat the down from whatever the enforcement spot will be and attempt to try over again. So that was a try example, I think. Michael, do we have an example here involving a field goal?
We've got one real quick here. Team A attempts a field goal from B's 30-yard line. So like we talked about earlier, bank that yard line because we might need it later. A Team B player in the end zone leaps above the crossbar, bats the ball in flight. The ball goes in the field of play. First of all, if you can do that, that's really impressive. He's probably playing the wrong sport. This is a foul for batting the ball in the end zone. We cannot do this. So during regulation play, post-scrimmage kick enforcement would give us a safety at this point and the ball remains alive and normal scrimmage kick rules apply. Team A can elect the result of the play. If Team A does recover, does not score and accepts a penalty, or if the play occurs in an extra period, then the enforcement in this case would be the previous spot. So this is safety in this case because we have a foul that occurs in the end zone. We don't have anywhere else to go, similar to a holding foul in Team A's end zone. So, but I would like to see somebody try to jump up and bat that. That would be impressive.
Yeah, I mean, this is an example, so it's one to keep in mind, but there's a pretty good shot you're not going to see this happen, but if they can do it, boy, it should be something to watch.
So the fun thing was, if you're at Thanksgiving this year and everybody goes, hey, what if somebody jumps up and knocks the ball out? And you can tell them it's a foul. You can now tell folks that.
If you're having lunch and you see that and it happens in an NFL game, then you can say, hey, in college, that's a foul. We don't follow NFL rules. So if somebody knows that, then email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
Let us know what happens there. So we've talked about a few different scenarios. Chances are pretty good. And I think if it's not 100% of the times I've ever dealt with PSK, it's at least 99. It's been on punts. So let's go through a few punts here. So 4th and 8 at the A48. From a scrimmage kick formation, A32 punts the ball to the B7. It hits B25 on the leg there. The ball's rolling on the ground, and B25 kicks it at the B4 to prevent Team A from recovering. The ball bounces into Team B's end zone and over the end line. The result of this play is a safety, because B25's kicking provided a new impetus to the ball. It's a foul by B25 for illegal kicking. Team A can decline the penalty and take the 2 points, and they'll get the ball from a free kick, or they can accept the penalty. The foul here would be governed by post-scrimmage kick rules if the penalty is accepted. So the accepted penalty would then give Team B the ball at the B2, first down and 10.
I'm not sure why you would ever accept this penalty, but I suppose you always have that option, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are options. I agree with you. That seems very unlikely, but for further discussion here, you can look at rules 8-5-1 and 8-7-2.
Yeah.
Yet another example here, one that's much, much, much more straightforward. You have a punt. During the punt, B1 holds A2 behind or beyond the neutral zone after the kick crosses the neutral zone and before it's touched Team B. It's a penalty. It's a 10-yard penalty subject to PSK enforcement if Team B is next to snap the ball. Fairly simple. You want to run through a few more, Michael?
Yeah, we'll hit a couple more here. let's stay on the punts here. I think because this is going to be probably more applicable to most of our audience here. So let's say we go with a block punt. And again, if you're deep like me on Saturdays, block punts are always the best. So let's say Team A's punt is going to be blocked. It crosses the neutral zone. It wasn't fully blocked. All right. Well, I tried. Team A's punt is blocked. It crosses the neutral zone, is untouched by Team B beyond the neutral zone. So there's a couple things to think about there. We'll come back to that. It rebounds back behind the neutral zone before Team B clips or holds. The ball is loose at the time of the foul. While we did have a punt that was initially blocked, it did end up crossing the neutral zone, so we're going to ignore that block. That does not consider to be first touching by B. Or first touching is the wrong thing to say there. Rather, it's not touched by B at that point because it happened in or behind the neutral zone. So the ball is loose at the time of the foul, and the foul is during the kick. If Team B is next to snap the ball, we would have to enforce it according to post-scrimmage kick rules, and that would be where the kick ended. And so visually trying to break this out, we have a block kick that goes beyond the line, and for one reason or another, a wind, a weird bounce, or a bad hop comes back behind the line. So we had the ball cross and touch, but it was untouched by B beyond the neutral zone. That's the important part to remember here. But It was still loose.
Right. And we can take a sort of an opposite example of that just to make sure we keep this straight. So let's say we have a punt that's blocked behind the neutral zone before clipping or holding by Team B occurs beyond the neutral zone. In this case, the ball never crosses the neutral zone during the play. So here, 10-2-3, again, it applies only when a scrimmage kick has crossed the neutral zone. Here, the ball never crossed the neutral zone. So Team A is going to retain possession after the penalty is enforced from the previous spot.
Right, because that's the only place we have to enforce it from.
Right.
Ryan, how about I do one more, bring us home? And
that works.
All right, man. We'll end on another punt here. Team A's punt crosses the neutral zone, and during the kick, B79 holds A55 1 yard beyond the neutral zone. B44 catches the kick at the B25 and returns to the B40 where he's tackled. So B79's foul is covered by post-scrimmage kick enforcement. The 10-yard penalty is enforced at the end of the kick, which is the B25. First and 10 for Team B at the B15. So this is what we alluded to earlier, where we didn't have a spot we're kicking from. Let's say we're kicking from the 50. The foul occurred at the 49-yard line, but the kick ends at the 25. Based on PSK rules, we're going to go back from that 25, and that's where on the 15.
Right. And Michael, if there's one thing I hate to do, it's to undermine you or contradict you. But I want to give just one more example. So
you do one more? All right.
I'm going to give one more example. Then we're going to do a sign off. This is going to be my Thanksgiving present to you and yours. But it's one more aspect of this that I want to highlight. So on this play, Team A snaps the ball at the A35. We have 4th and 7. Just after the snap, B77 grabs A66 and pulls him to one side, allowing B43 to shoot the gap to try to block the kick. So your classic pull and shoot here.
Okay.
B44 actually catches the kick and returns it to the B40 where he's tackled. The ruling here is that B77's holding foul would not be covered by post-scrimmage kick enforcement here because it's before the kick, right? So that's one of the things that we want to emphasize. We emphasized it last week, we emphasized it today. It's important to know what happens when, right? So here we have a foul that occurs prior to the kick. So we're not going to have post-scrimmage kick enforcement here. Instead, we're going to have a 10-yard penalty enforced from the previous spot. In this case, because it was 4th and 7, that yardage is going to give Team A the first down. It'll be 1st and 10 for Team A from the A45. So again, think through all your elements of post-scrimmage kick enforcement. But one important timing issue is that the foul has to occur after the kick, but before the kick is ended. So at some point while this kick is in process, that's when a PSK foul would have to occur. If it's before the kick, we don't have PSK. If it's after the kick ends, we don't have PSK. We just have a running play at that point for the return. So timing is important, and keeping in mind that timing is important, it's time for us to sign off. So we want to thank you for joining us once again.
That's called a segue.
It took us 15 episodes, but I finally got one. Thank you all for joining us once again for this episode of Learn Your Stripes. As a bit of a housekeeping matter before signing off, we'd like to discuss what's coming up in the weeks ahead. This is going to be our last episode before Thanksgiving, and we're not going to record next week. In the off season, we intend to record every other week, though it may be a bit sporadic between Thanksgiving and the New Year. I suspect that we'll get one or two in during the month of December, but chances are it's not going to be every week, and there may even be some 2-week gaps. But as our seasons are pretty much at the end at this point, hopefully you've got a little bit more coming, Michael. But since our seasons are at the end and we've been doing this weekly for the most part throughout our high school and college seasons, we would appreciate and look forward to having a little bit of rest and a chance to recharge and do some good research for some upcoming episodes. So that's what we're going to do at this point in time. We're also going to look into the technical aspect of hosting some video episodes and our live chat so that you can be involved with us and we can have more interactive conversations with you as we move forward. That's the logistical thing for us to figure out. So some of the downtime we'll have over the next month and a half, we're going to look into that and try to figure it out. But before we take the chance to enjoy the Thanksgiving holiday, and we of course certainly wish all of you and your families a very happy Thanksgiving, as always, we're going to leave you with a play to consider.
Okay, Team A or K, however you want to refer to them, lines up in a free kick formation. And kicker K49 kicks the ball into the air. It's going to travel 20 yards. K87 catches the ball before it ever hits the ground. Do we have a foul? What is that foul going to be? Who gets to put the ball in play next? What is our down and distance, our usual game and play clock? And do we have any differences between high school or college?
Yeah, and remember that in high school, we would use the K designation. In college, we use A and B throughout. So we've only used both here because if you only do high school, we don't want to have confusion from A and B. But also just want to make sure that for those of you who do college, that's why we're using K, just to make sure that we have clarity for everyone, no matter what level you're officiating at. But with that play in mind, we'll discuss that play at the start of our next episode. In the meantime, if you want to let us know what your ruling would be, or if you have any questions or feel we made a mistake, please email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com. You can also use that email address to send us ideas or topics for episodes that you would like for us to cover. We'd certainly welcome that. And like I said, we're going to do one on basic spots very soon. But if you have a topic or topics that you'd like for us to cover, then submit it to us and we'll certainly do so. And that email address again is learnyourstripes@gmail.com. As always, you can find episodes or obtain an RSS link to directly download all episodes into your podcast app of choice at learnyourstripespodcast.com. Please follow us on Facebook at Learn Your Stripes Podcast and on Twitter at LYS_podcast. If you enjoy our podcast, please rate us 5 stars and leave a review on your podcast app of choice. If you enjoy it, please share our podcast with your friends. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. In the meantime, have a very happy Thanksgiving and keep learning your stripes.
Thank you, everyone.